The letter trembled in Delilah Turner's hands as the stagecoach rattled toward Taylorsville, Montana territory, carrying her toward a future she could scarcely imagine, and a man whose face she had never seen. She owned nothing except the threadbare dress on her back, a single spare undergarment wrapped in brown paper, and the worn shoes that pinched her feet with every step. Even the letter itself had been a luxury she could barely afford to answer. Written on paper, begged from the mission house in Boston, where she had lived these past 6 months after the factory fire took her job and the fever took her mother. Spring of 1882 painted the Montana landscape in shades of green and gold, wildflowers dotting the plains like scattered jewels under a sky so vast it made her heart ache. Delilah pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching antelope scatter across the grasslands. She was 20 years old, alone in the world and gambling everything on the words of a stranger named Vincent Emerson who needed a wife and promised a home. The other passengers kept their distance. Her dress, mended so many times the original fabric barely showed through the patches, marked her poverty as clearly as a brand. The merchant's wife across from her clutched her reticule tighter whenever Delilah shifted position, as if destitution might be contagious. Delilah lifted her chin and kept her gaze on the window. She had learned long ago that pride cost nothing, and sometimes it was all a person had left. Taylorsville emerged from the plains like a mirage. Buildings of raw lumber and false fronts lining a main street churned to mud by recent rains. The stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of a building marked as the general store and post office. Delilah's stomach twisted itself into knots. Vincent Emerson was supposed to meet her here. She smoothed her dress uselessly and stepped down into the street, her inadequate shoes squelching in the mud. Men paused in their work to stare. Women whispered behind gloved hands. Delilah stood beside her single piece of luggage, a carpet bag so worn the handles were held together with string, and searched the gathering crowd for a man who might be searching for her. Miss Turner. The voice came from behind her, low and careful, as if its owner feared startling a wild creature. Delilah turned and felt her breath catch. Vincent Emerson stood perhaps 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered beneath a work-worn shirt and vest, his face weathered by sun and wind into planes and angles that spoke of strength rather than softness. But it was his eyes that held her, brown and warm and filled with something she had not expected. "Kindness, Mr. Emerson." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Yes, I am Delilah Turner." He removed his hat, revealing dark hair that needed cutting, and held the hat against his chest like a shield. "Vincent, just Vincent if you would, I am glad you came. I was not certain, until I saw the stage, that you would truly come. I gave my word in my letter." Delilah met his eyes directly, willing him to see that she might arrive with nothing, but she was not nothing. "I do not break promises, Mr. Emerson." "Vincent," he said again, this time with the hint of a smile touching his lips. He reached for her carpetbag, then paused. "May I?" The courtesy surprised her. In Boston, men had grabbed and taken without asking. She nodded, and he lifted the bag as if it weighed more than it did, treating her poor belongings with a respect that made her throat tight. "My wagon is just here." He gestured toward a sturdy wagon hitched to 2 patient horses. "The ranch is about an hour's ride. I thought, if you are not too tired, we might stop by the mercantile first. You will need some things." Delilah felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Mr. Emerson, I should tell you plainly, I have 43 cents to my name. I cannot afford to purchase anything beyond the most basic necessities, and even those I will have to take on credit against whatever wages you might pay for housekeeping work." Vincent had been moving toward the wagon but stopped at her words. He turned back, his expression unreadable. "Did you think I was asking you to pay? Miss Turner, I sent for a wife, not an indentured servant. What you need I will provide. That is how this works. I will not be a burden." The words came out sharper than she intended. "I will earn my keep, Mr. Emerson. I can cook, clean, mend, tend a garden, and I am not afraid of hard work." Something shifted in his expression, softening it further. "I am certain you can do all those things and more, but this is not about earning anything. You agreed to marry me. That makes you my responsibility, my partner. Partners do not keep tallies." The word partner rattled around in Delilah's mind as she let him help her into the wagon. In all her 20 years, no one had ever called her a partner in anything. She sat stiffly on the worn seat as Vincent climbed up beside her, hyper-aware of his presence, the warm bulk of him just inches away. The mercantile smelled of coffee, leather, and possibility. The proprietor, a balding man with spectacles perched on his nose, greeted Vincent warmly. "Emerson. Good to see you. What brings you to town on a Thursday?" "My bride arrived on the stage, Patterson. Miss Delilah Turner, this is Clarence Patterson. He runs the best mercantile in 3 territories, though it is also the only one, so perhaps that is not saying much." Patterson laughed and turned his attention to Delilah, his expression curious but not unkind. "Welcome to Taylorsville, Miss Turner. What can I help you folks with today?" Vincent gestured for Delilah to walk the aisles. "Whatever you need. Clothing, toiletries, anything at all." Delilah stood frozen. The abundance overwhelmed her. Bolts of fabric in colors she had only dreamed of, ready-made dresses hanging from hooks, boots and shoes lined up like soldiers, ribbons and lace and buttons sparkling in glass jars. Her hands knotted in her skirt. "I do not know where to begin." "Perhaps a dress or two," Vincent suggested gently, "and boots that fit properly. I noticed yours are causing you pain." She had tried so hard not to limp. Delilah felt her face flush again, but she nodded. With Vincent's encouragement and Patterson's wife emerging from the back to help, she selected 2 simple calico dresses, one in deep blue and one in green, a pair of sturdy boots, stockings, a warm shawl, a nightgown that was not full of holes, a hairbrush, soap, and other small necessities that felt like unimaginable luxuries. When Patterson tallied the bill, Delilah's hands went cold. $12.37, more money than she had seen in 6 months. Vincent paid without hesitation, counting out the bills and coins as if they were nothing. "Would you like to change now?" Vincent asked as they loaded the parcels into the wagon. "Those shoes look painful." "Yes, please." Delilah clutched the package containing the boots and one of the dresses. Patterson's wife showed her to a small room in the back where she could change in privacy. Delilah peeled off her old dress and stood for a moment in her worn undergarments, looking at the new dress laid out on the chair. The fabric felt soft and sturdy under her fingers, the stitching strong and even. She pulled it on, fastened the buttons with trembling hands, then laced up the boots. They fit perfectly, the leather new and supple. When she emerged, Vincent's expression did something that made her stomach flutter. His eyes widened slightly and he stood a bit straighter. "That color suits you. Blue brings out your eyes." "Thank you." Delilah touched the skirt self-consciously. "And thank you for all of this. I will find ways to repay you." "You already are." Vincent offered his arm to help her back into the wagon. "You came all this way on faith, leaving everything familiar behind. That took more courage than I have ever had to muster." The ride to the ranch took them through rolling hills dotted with cattle bearing Vincent's brand, a simple E inside a V. He pointed out landmarks, his voice steady and informative, telling her about the land, the weather patterns, the neighbors scattered across the territory. Delilah listened, watching his hands on the reins, strong and sure, noticing the way he scanned the horizon constantly, alert but not anxious. "How long have you had the ranch?" she asked. "Coming on 8 years now. My father started it back in '73. He and my mother came out here with nothing but a wagon, 2 horses, and more hope than sense." Vincent's voice carried affection despite the words. "They built everything from scratch. When the fever took them both in '78, I inherited the ranch and have been building on what they started. It is not much yet, but it is mine. Ours," he corrected, glancing at her. "I am sorry about your parents. Thank you. It has been 4 years, but I still miss them, especially my mother. She would have liked you. She did not even know me." Delilah could not keep the skepticism from her voice. "She would have liked that you speak plainly and do not simper. She had no patience for women who pretended to be helpless when they were not." Vincent guided the horses around a rocky outcrop. "And she would have appreciated that you insisted on earning your way. She was the same, proud." The ranch house appeared as they crested a hill, and Delilah felt her chest tighten again. It was larger than she expected, a solid 2-story structure with a wide porch wrapping around the front and one side. Outbuildings clustered nearby, a barn, a chicken coop, a smokehouse, and several others she could not identify. Horses grazed in a corral and cattle dotted the surrounding pastures. "It is beautiful," she said softly. Vincent helped her down from the wagon, his hands strong and steady on her waist. For a moment they stood close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes, smell the clean scent of soap and leather that clung to him. Then he stepped back, clearing his throat. "Let me show you inside." The house was clean but sparse, furnished with handmade furniture that showed more function than artistry. The main room held a stone fireplace, a table with 4 chairs, a rocking chair, and little else. The kitchen was well stocked with pots, pans, and dishes, everything organized with military precision. Upstairs, Vincent showed her 3 bedrooms, one clearly his, one empty except for a bed frame, and one that appeared to be used for storage. "I thought you might want to set up the 2nd bedroom for yourself," Vincent said, not quite meeting her eyes, "until you are comfortable with other arrangements. I do not expect anything you are not ready to give, Delilah. I know this is strange for both of us." Relief and something else, something she could not quite name, washed through her. "Thank you for understanding. We are strangers brought together by letters and necessity," Vincent said quietly. "I hope we will become more than that in time, but I will not force the matter. You have my word." He carried her packages upstairs and helped her settle the few things she owned into the empty bedroom. When he left her alone to rest and refresh herself, Delilah sat on the bed and let herself shake. Everything had happened so fast. This morning she had woken in a stagecoach, terrified and alone. Now she sat in a real house, wearing a new dress and boots that fit, with a man downstairs who seemed genuinely kind. It felt too good to be true, and her life had taught her that things that seemed too good to be true usually were. But when she went downstairs an hour later, drawn by the smell of coffee, she found Vincent at the stove making dinner. He looked up and smiled. "I hope you do not mind venison stew. I am not much of a cook, but I have mastered a few basic meals. I told you I can cook." Delilah moved toward the stove. "Let me help." They worked together in the kitchen, Vincent showing her where things were kept, Delilah taking over the stew and improving it with herbs from the garden he maintained in pots by the window. Their conversation came easier now. Small talk about preferences and habits, the comfortable dance of 2 people learning each other's rhythms. Over dinner, Vincent asked her about Boston, and Delilah found herself telling him more than she intended. about the factory where she had sewn shirts for 12 hours a day, the cramped boarding house where she had lived with her mother, the fire that took her job, the fever that took her mother, the mission house where she had waited and hoped for something, anything, to change her circumstances. "And then I saw your advertisement," she finished. "Wife wanted for Montana rancher. Must be honest, hardworking, and willing to build a life on the frontier. It said nothing about bringing money or possessions, only character. I thought perhaps that was something I could offer." Vincent reached across the table and covered her hand with his. The gesture was brief, almost hesitant, but it sent warmth racing up her arm. "You bring everything I need, Delilah, everything I have been missing. You do not even know me yet. I know enough. I know you kept your mother through her illness when you could have abandoned her to save yourself. I know you answered my letter honestly, telling me of your circumstances rather than pretending to be something you are not. I know you traveled across the country with almost nothing, braving danger and uncertainty to honor an agreement with a stranger. That tells me who you are." Delilah felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back. "Why did you send for a bride? You seem perfectly capable of managing on your own." Vincent leaned back in his chair, considering her question. "I am capable of surviving alone, but this ranch, this land, it feels empty without someone to share it with. I am 25 years old, and I have spent the last 4 years working myself to exhaustion to avoid feeling lonely. That is no way to live. I want a partner, a family, a future that has meaning beyond accumulating cattle and land. And you think I can give you that? I think we can give each other that if we are both willing to try." The conversation stayed with Delilah as she lay in her new bed that night, staring at the ceiling of her new bedroom in her new home. Vincent's words echoed in her mind: partner, everything I need, a future with meaning. She had come west expecting duty, obligation, perhaps even hardship. She had not expected kindness, or the possibility that this arrangement might become something real. The next morning, Vincent woke her with a gentle knock on the door and an offer of breakfast. She dressed quickly in her second new dress, the green one, and found him once again at the stove. "Do you always cook?" she asked, moving to help. "Only because I have had no choice." Vincent stepped aside willingly. "If you truly want to take over kitchen duties, I will not complain. My cooking is functional at best." Delilah surveyed the larder and began pulling out ingredients. She made flapjacks with wild berry preserves, fried eggs, and strong coffee. Vincent ate with evident appreciation, making small sounds of approval that pleased her more than she wanted to admit. "What needs doing today?" she asked as they cleaned up together. "I need to ride out and check the northern pastures, make sure none of the cattle have wandered too far. It will take most of the day." Vincent hesitated. "You would be welcome to come along if you ride, or you can stay here and settle in, whatever feels right to you." "I can ride, though it has been years." Delilah dried the last plate and set it in the cupboard. "And I would like to see more of the ranch if you do not mind the company." Vincent's face brightened. "I do not mind at all. I will saddle 2 horses." The mare Vincent chose for her was gentle and patient, a dappled gray named Willow. Delilah's riding skills came back slowly as they set out across the grasslands, Vincent keeping pace beside her on his gelding. The spring morning sparkled with possibility. Birds singing from fence posts, wildflowers nodding in the breeze. They rode for hours, Vincent pointing out landmarks and boundaries, explaining his plans for expanding the herd, talking about the challenges of ranching in Montana territory, where the weather could turn deadly without warning and rustlers were an ever-present threat. Delilah listened and asked questions, genuinely interested in understanding the life she had committed to. Around midday, they stopped by a creek to rest the horses and eat the lunch Delilah had packed. She spread a cloth on the grass and unpacked bread, cheese, and dried apples. Vincent stretched out nearby, tilting his hat over his eyes against the sun. "Tell me about your family," Delilah said. "Beyond what happened to your parents, do you have siblings, cousins, anyone else?" "No siblings. My mother could not have more children after me, though they tried for years. As for cousins, there might be some back east in Pennsylvania, but we lost touch years ago." Vincent pushed his hat back to look at her. "It has just been me for a long time. What about you?" "Only child as well. My father died in a factory accident when I was 6. After that, it was just my mother and me. She worked herself to the bone to keep us fed and housed. I started in the factories as soon as I was old enough." Delilah pulled at the grass beside her. "I always thought there would be time for more, for something better. Then she was gone, and I realized how quickly life can slip away if you do not grab hold of it." "Is that why you answered my advertisement?" "Partly. But also because I had nothing left to lose and possibly everything to gain." She met his eyes. "That probably sounds mercenary." "It sounds honest." Vincent sat up, his expression serious. "I prefer honesty to pretty lies." They rode back to the ranch in comfortable silence, arriving as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. Delilah's legs ached from the unaccustomed riding, but it was a good ache, the kind that came from doing something worthwhile. Over the following weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Delilah took over the household tasks, cooking and cleaning and tending the vegetable garden that Vincent had started but never had time to maintain properly. She mended his clothes, organized the cluttered storage room, and made curtains from fabric Vincent bought on their next trip to town. The house slowly transformed from a place where a man existed into a home where people lived. Vincent worked the ranch from dawn to dusk, but he always made time to talk with her in the evenings. They would sit on the porch as the sun set, sharing details of their days, opinions on everything from politics to poetry, dreams for the future. Delilah found herself watching for his return each evening with an eagerness that both pleased and frightened her. She was falling in love with him, she realized one night as she brushed her hair before bed. Not the wild, passionate love of dime novels, but something steadier and deeper. Love built on respect, compatibility, shared work, and genuine liking. Vincent made her laugh with his dry wit. He listened when she spoke, truly listened, asking questions and remembering details. He never made her feel less than him because she had arrived with nothing. If anything, he seemed to value her more because of what she had overcome. The question was whether he felt the same. A month after her arrival, they went to town together for supplies. Delilah had made a list of staples they needed and some fabric to make herself a third dress. As they walked through the mercantile, Patterson's wife pulled Delilah aside. "You have done wonders for that man," Martha Patterson said quietly. "I have known Vincent since he was a boy helping his father buy supplies. These past few years, since he lost his folks, he has been so lost. But look at him now. He smiles again. You brought light back into his life." Delilah glanced over to where Vincent was examining a new saddle, and her heart squeezed. "He has brought light into mine as well." "Have you two married yet? Properly, I mean, with a preacher." Heat flooded Delilah's face. "No, we have been waiting, getting to know each other." Martha patted her hand. "Nothing wrong with that, dear. But do not wait too long. When you know, and I can see by the way you look at each other that you both know." That evening, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies dance over the grass, Delilah gathered her courage. "Vincent, can I ask you something? Anything? Are you happy with how things are between us? With the arrangement as it stands?" Vincent was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "I am happier than I have been in years." But if you are asking whether I want more, the answer is yes. I want everything, Delilah. A true marriage, a partnership in every sense, but only when you want it too. I want it. The words came out in a rush. I have wanted it for weeks now, but I did not know if you felt the same. I thought perhaps you were content with the arrangement as it was. Vincent turned to her, his eyes intense in the fading light. Content? I am tormented, Delilah. Every night I lie in my bed knowing you are just down the hall, so close but not truly mine. Every morning I wake wishing I had the right to hold you, to start my day with you beside me. I agreed to wait because I wanted you to be certain, but I have been certain since the day you stepped off that stage in your mended dress and worn shoes, looking at the world with such fierce pride despite having nothing. Delilah felt tears slip down her cheeks. You said I brought everything you needed. But Vincent, you gave me everything I needed. Not the dresses or the boots or the home, though I am grateful for all of that. You gave me dignity. You gave me a place in the world. You gave me hope for a future I had stopped believing in. Vincent reached over and wiped her tears away with his thumb, his touch gentle. Then let us make that future real. Marry me, Delilah. Not the agreement we made through letters, but a true marriage born of choice and love, because I do love you. I think I started loving you the moment you looked me in the eye and told me you do not break promises. Yes. Delilah laughed through her tears. Yes, I will marry you, and I love you too, Vincent Emerson. I love your kindness and your strength and your ridiculous early morning attempts at cooking. I love the way you treat me as an equal and the way you see value in me beyond what I can do or provide. I just love you. Vincent pulled her into his arms, holding her close as the stars emerged overhead. They sat like that for a long time, wrapped in each other and the enormity of what they had confessed. When he finally kissed her, it was tender and sweet and full of promise. They married 3 days later in the small church in Taylorsville, with the Pattersons and a handful of neighbors as witnesses. Delilah wore a new dress Vincent had insisted on buying, pale yellow with lace at the collar, and carried wildflowers Vincent had picked that morning. The ceremony was simple and brief, but when the preacher pronounced them man and wife, Delilah felt the words settle into her soul like an anchor. That night, in the bedroom that was now theirs together, Vincent proved as tender and patient as he had been in everything else. He made her feel cherished and beautiful, his touches reverent, his words soft promises in the darkness. Delilah gave herself to him completely, holding nothing back, and discovered joy in the joining of their bodies that matched the joining of their hearts. The next morning, she woke wrapped in his arms, the sun streaming through the window, and felt perfectly content for the first time in her life. Their first year of marriage brought challenges alongside the joy. A drought in midsummer threatened the grass the cattle depended on, forcing Vincent to sell some of the herd earlier than planned to ensure the remaining animals would survive. Delilah worked alongside him during the crisis, hauling water, checking on struggling calves, doing whatever needed doing despite the heat and exhaustion. When the rains finally came in late August, they stood together on the porch watching the storm roll across the plains, and Vincent pulled her close. I could not have survived this without you. You know that, do not you? We survived it together, Delilah corrected. That is what partners do. In October, Delilah realized she was pregnant. The knowledge filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. She told Vincent one evening after dinner, watching his face carefully for his reaction. His whoop of delight echoed through the house. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing, then immediately set her down gently as if she might break. Are you certain? Are you well? What do you need? Should you be resting? Delilah laughed at his sudden nervousness. I am certain. I am well. I need nothing beyond the usual things, and no, I do not need to rest constantly. Women have babies while continuing to live their lives, Vincent. But he fussed over her anyway, trying to take on her chores along with his own, worrying when she looked tired, bringing her little treats from town. Delilah found his concern endearing even when it verged on excessive. Winter came early and harsh, snow piling up around the ranch buildings, temperatures dropping so low that icicles formed on the inside of the windows. Vincent brought the pregnant cows close to the barn and spent long hours ensuring nothing froze. Delilah kept the house warm, cooked hearty meals, and worked on sewing baby clothes from soft flannel. They spent the long winter evenings together, Vincent reading aloud from books while Delilah sewed, or simply talking about everything and nothing. The isolation of winter, which Vincent had always hated, became something almost magical with Delilah there. The house felt like a warm cocoon protecting them from the harsh world outside. In late March of 1883, as the snow began to melt and early wildflowers pushed through the frozen ground, Delilah went into labor. Vincent rode through the mud to fetch the midwife, a capable woman named Clara Davies who lived on a neighboring ranch. Clara arrived to find Delilah pacing the bedroom, breathing through contractions with determined focus. "First baby?" Clara asked, washing her hands. "Yes," Delilah gasped. "Could be a while then. Best settle in. You, husband, make yourself useful. Boil water, gather clean towels, and try not to panic." Vincent looked like panic was exactly what he wanted to do, but he followed Clara's orders, returning periodically to check on Delilah. She labored through the afternoon and into the evening, Clara coaching her, Vincent holding her hand and whispering encouragement. Finally, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and pink, their son entered the world with a lusty cry. Clara cleaned him and placed him in Delilah's arms, and Delilah looked down at the tiny red face, the shock of dark hair. The miniature fingers curled into fists, and felt her heart expand impossibly. "He is perfect," Vincent breathed, kneeling beside the bed, touching the baby's hand with one tentative finger. "Delilah, he is perfect." They named him Thomas after Delilah's father. Thomas Vincent Emerson, born with a full head of hair and his father's stubborn chin. Vincent proved as devoted a father as he was a husband, taking turns walking the floor with Thomas when he fussed at night, changing nappies without complaint, staring at his son with wonder when the baby was sleeping. "I never knew I could love like this," he told Delilah one night as they watched Thomas sleep in his cradle beside their bed. "I thought I understood love when we married, but this is something else entirely. It just keeps growing," Delilah agreed softly. "I look at him and I look at you, and I think my heart might burst from how full it feels." Thomas thrived. By summer he was smiling and gurgling, his eyes tracking his parents as they moved around the room. Delilah wore him in a sling as she worked, and Vincent took him out to the barn to see the horses, talking to his son about the ranch and the cattle and everything they would do together when Thomas was older. The ranch prospered too. The herd had recovered from the drought, and Vincent's careful management meant they had healthy calves to sell. He hired a young man named Jack to help with the heavy work, giving Vincent more time to spend with his family. They added rooms to the house, planning for the future, for more children, for the life they were building together. On their second wedding anniversary, Vincent gave Delilah a locket with a photograph of Thomas inside. "I know you came to me with nothing," he said as he fastened it around her neck. "But you brought me everything that matters. You brought me love, family, purpose, joy. This locket is just a symbol, but I want you to have something tangible to represent how much you mean to me." Delilah touched the locket, feeling the weight of it against her heart. You gave me those same things, Vincent. You gave me a home not just in this house but in your heart. You gave me respect and partnership and love. You looked at a woman with nothing and saw someone worth choosing. Because you are worth everything. Vincent kissed her softly. Always have been, always will be. In the spring of 1884, Delilah discovered she was pregnant again. Thomas was just over a year old, toddling around the house and getting into everything with the fearless curiosity of a child who knew he was loved. The second pregnancy was easier than the first, perhaps because Delilah knew what to expect, or perhaps because the ranch was running smoothly enough that she could rest when she needed to. Their daughter arrived in November during the first snowfall of the season, smaller than Thomas had been but fierce, announcing her displeasure at the cold world with powerful cries. They named her Rose after Vincent's mother, and she had Delilah's eyes and a temperament that suggested she would be a force to be reckoned with. 2 children, Vincent marveled, holding Rose while Thomas climbed onto his lap, demanding attention. We have 2 children, Delilah. A family. A real family. Did you doubt we would? Delilah asked, amused. Sometimes I still wake up and think this might be a dream, he admitted. That I will wake up alone in this empty house and none of this will be real. But then I see you, see them, and I know I am the luckiest man in Montana territory. The years flowed past like water, each one bringing its own challenges and triumphs. Drought came again, and they weathered it together, stronger for having survived it before. A harsh winter killed some of the herd, but Vincent had been conservative in his borrowing, so they absorbed the loss and rebuilt. Thomas started helping with small chores around the ranch, taking his responsibilities seriously even at 4 years old. Rose proved as stubborn as her parents, refusing to accept any limitation placed on her. In 1886, their third child arrived, another son they named William. By then, the ranch was well established, the house expanded and comfortable, their place in the community secure. Delilah had become known for her kindness, always willing to help neighbors in need, taking food to families struggling with illness or hardship. Vincent served on the committee working to bring better schools to the territory, believing education mattered as much as land or cattle. Through it all, their love deepened and matured. The passionate intensity of their early days together evolved into something steadier but no less powerful. They were partners in the truest sense, making decisions together, supporting each other through difficulties, celebrating successes as shared victories. One evening in the summer of 1887, as they sat on the porch watching their children play in the yard, Thomas chasing Rose while William toddled after them both, Vincent took Delilah's hand. "You remember what you said in your first letter to me?" he asked. Delilah thought back, smiling at the memory of her younger self, so desperate and afraid. "I said many things. Which part do you mean? You wrote that you had nothing to offer but honesty, hard work, and a willingness to try. Do you remember what I wrote back? You said that was more than enough, that you valued character over possessions." Vincent nodded. "I meant it then, but I did not fully understand what I was saying. I thought I was getting a hard-working partner, someone to help build this ranch. And I got that, but I got so much more. I got a woman who loves fiercely and protects those she cares about. I got someone who sees the best in people and brings out the best in me. I got the love of my life, Delilah. You did come with nothing in terms of material possessions, but you brought everything I ever needed." Delilah leaned her head on his shoulder, watching the children, feeling the solid warmth of the man beside her. "You know what the real miracle is? I came west thinking I was lucky you would take a chance on someone with nothing, but the truth is, we were both lucky. We found each other at exactly the moment we both needed finding. Not luck, Vincent said. Faith. You had faith that answering that advertisement might lead somewhere better. I had faith that somewhere out there was a woman who would see this ranch, this life, as something worth building. Our faith brought us together and our love kept us together. Thomas ran up to the porch, breathless and laughing. Papa, can we have a story before bed? Can we have 2 stories? Rose added, climbing the steps behind her brother. We shall see, Vincent said, but his tone suggested the answer would be yes. He stood and scooped up William, who had reached the porch and was clinging to Vincent's legs. Come on then, monsters. Let us get you cleaned up and into bed. Delilah followed her family inside, pausing at the doorway to look back at the land stretching away in all directions. Theirs. Hard won and carefully tended, this ranch represented years of work and love and stubborn determination. But it was more than land and cattle. It was a home. It was a future. It was everything she had dreamed of during those desperate days in Boston when the future had seemed impossibly bleak. She thought about the scared young woman who had stepped off that stagecoach 5 years ago, wearing a dress more patch than original fabric, carrying everything she owned in a carpet bag held together with string. That woman had been brave, braver than she knew, taking such an enormous risk on such a slender hope. And that risk had paid off beyond anything she could have imagined. Inside, Vincent was reading to the children, his deep voice animated as he brought the story to life. Thomas sat rapt with attention. Rose was fighting sleep, and William had already surrendered to it, curled against his father's side. Delilah stood in the doorway watching them, committing the scene to memory. After the children were settled in their beds, Delilah and Vincent walked through the house together, checking windows and doors, banking the fire, performing the small rituals of closing down the house for the night. In their bedroom, Vincent pulled her into his arms, holding her close. I love you, Delilah Emerson, more with every passing day. I love you too, Vincent. Thank you for seeing past what I did not have to what I could be. Thank you for taking a chance on a lonely rancher's advertisement and traveling halfway across the country to give us both a chance at happiness. They climbed into bed together, familiar and comfortable in their closeness. Through the window, stars blazed across the Montana sky, the same stars that had watched over them that first night and every night since. Delilah drifted toward sleep, safe in Vincent's arms, listening to the quiet sounds of her children breathing in nearby rooms, feeling utterly and completely at peace. She had come west with nothing and found everything. Not just material comfort, though the security of a home and sufficient resources mattered. But more importantly, she had found love, purpose, belonging. She had found a man who valued her for herself, not for what she could bring or provide. She had found partnership, friendship, passion, and family, and Vincent had found the same. He told her often that she had saved him from a half-life of work without joy, from the loneliness that had been consuming him. They had saved each other, really. 2 people lost in different ways, brought together by circumstance and choice, building something beautiful from the raw materials of hope and determination. Years continued to pass, each one adding its own chapters to their story. The children grew, the ranch expanded, Montana gained statehood in 1889, and Vincent and Delilah grew old together, surrounded by the life they had built. When Thomas turned 16 in 1899, Vincent officially made him a partner in the ranch. Thomas had grown into a serious young man with his father's steady nature and his mother's fierce determination. He worked the land with the same care Vincent had taught him, already planning improvements and expansions for the future. Rose, at 14, shocked everyone by announcing she wanted to become a teacher. Education for women was becoming more accepted, and the territory needed teachers desperately. Delilah and Vincent supported her ambition, sending her to the normal school in Helena where she excelled. William, the baby, turned out to have a gift with horses. At 12 years old, he could gentle the wildest mustang with patience and kindness. Vincent watched his youngest son work and saw echoes of his own father, who had possessed the same almost mystical ability to understand horses. In 1900, as the new century dawned, Delilah and Vincent sat together on the porch much as they had 18 years earlier. They were older now, both approaching 40, their faces weathered by sun and wind, their hands showing the calluses of hard work. But their love had only grown stronger, tempered by years of choosing each other day after day. "You ever wonder what would have happened if I had not placed that advertisement?" Vincent asked, his arm around Delilah's shoulders. "Sometimes," she admitted. "I would probably still be in Boston, struggling to survive, alone and poor. Or perhaps I would have died of hunger or illness by now. That life had no future in it. And I would still be here alone, working myself into an early grave, never knowing what I was missing." Delilah looked at the ranch spread out before them, prosperous and well-tended. She thought of their children, each following their own path but rooted in the values and love their parents had given them. She thought of the community they had helped build, the neighbors who had become friends, the life they had created together. "We were both so lost," she said softly. "I thought I was coming west to survive. I did not realize I was coming home." "Home is not always a place," Vincent said. "Sometimes it is a person. You are my home, Delilah. You always have been, from the moment you stepped off that stagecoach looking proud and terrified and determined all at once. And you are mine. My home, my heart, my everything." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose and purple. From inside the house came the sounds of William practicing his reading and the distant clatter of Thomas working in the barn. Rose was away at school but would return for the summer soon, full of stories about her studies and her plans. The ranch that had once felt empty and lonely now teemed with life and purpose. The house that had been merely a shelter had become a home filled with love and laughter. The man who had placed an advertisement for a wife out of loneliness and practicality had found a soulmate who completed him in ways he had never imagined possible. And the woman who had answered that advertisement with nothing but hope and determination had found everything she ever needed. As stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Delilah thought about that scared girl on the stagecoach, clutching a letter and trying to believe in possibility. She wished she could go back and tell that girl that everything would be all right, more than all right. That the risk she was taking would pay off beyond her wildest dreams. That the man waiting in Taylorsville would see her value when the rest of the world saw only her poverty. That she would find not just survival but joy, not just shelter but home, not just companionship but love. But that girl was gone, transformed by years of love and security and purpose into the woman Delilah was now. Strong, confident, beloved, and valued. A wife, a mother, a rancher's partner, a community member. All the things she had never dared to dream she could be. Vincent kissed the top of her head and she snuggled closer, breathing in the familiar scent of him. After 18 years, he still had the power to make her heart flutter. After 18 years, she still marveled that this good man had chosen her. But then, she had chosen him too. That was the secret, she thought. Love was not just something that happened to you. It was something you chose every single day in 1,000 small ways. It was choosing patience over anger, forgiveness over resentment, partnership over selfishness. It was choosing to see the best in each other even when life was hard. It was choosing to build something together even when building was difficult. She and Vincent had chosen each other 18 years ago, strangers taking a leap of faith, and they had continued choosing each other every day since. Through droughts and harsh winters, through the exhaustion of new babies and the challenges of raising children, through the endless work of building a ranch and a life, they had chosen each other, again and again, and that choosing had created something permanent and real and beautiful. Inside the house, William called for help with a difficult word. Vincent squeezed Delilah's shoulder and went to assist his son. Delilah remained on the porch, looking up at the stars, feeling grateful beyond measure for the life she had been given. She thought about all the people in the world who would never take the risk she had taken, who would let fear keep them from possibility. She thought about how close she had come to not answering that advertisement, to deciding it was too dangerous, too uncertain, too unlikely to work out. If she had let fear win, she would have missed all of this. The door opened behind her and Vincent returned. William is settled with his book. Thomas is finishing up in the barn. The ranch is quiet. Come to bed. Delilah took his offered hand and let him pull her to her feet. Together they walked into the house, through rooms filled with the evidence of their shared life. Photographs on the walls showing their family growing and changing. Books on shelves, some hers, some his, some belonging to the children. Furniture they had chosen together, quilts Delilah had sewn, tools Vincent had crafted. Every object told a story. Every room held memories. The house itself was a testament to their love, expanded and improved over the years to accommodate their growing family and their dreams for the future. In their bedroom, they prepared for sleep with the easy familiarity of long marriage. Vincent hung up his shirt while Delilah brushed out her hair. They moved around each other smoothly, a dance they had perfected over nearly 2 decades together. Lying in bed with the lamp extinguished, Vincent pulled Delilah close, her back to his chest, his arm wrapped around her waist. This was how they slept every night, fitted together like puzzle pieces. Delilah, Vincent's voice was quiet in the darkness. Yes. Thank you for saying yes all those years ago. Thank you for being brave enough to take a chance on me. Thank you for giving me the chance to take. Thank you for seeing me, really seeing me when so many people looked right through me. I saw you because you were impossible to miss. You stood there in the mud in your patched dress with your head held high, and I thought I had never seen anyone braver or more beautiful. Delilah smiled in the darkness. I was terrified. So was I. Terrified you would take one look at me in the ranch and run back to Boston on the next stage. Terrified I would disappoint you somehow. Terrified I would not be enough. You were always enough. More than enough, you were everything. They lay quietly, breathing in sync, hearts beating steady and sure. Outside, an owl called across the prairie. Somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed softly. The wind whispered through the grass, the eternal sound of Montana, wild and free and beautiful. Delilah thought about the years ahead, whatever time they had left together. There would be more challenges, certainly. Life always brought challenges. But they would face them together, as they had faced everything else. There would be joys, too. Grandchildren, perhaps, carrying on the legacy they had built. The satisfaction of seeing their children grown and happy. The simple pleasure of growing old beside the person you loved most in the world. She thought about the day she would die, hopefully many years in the future, and hoped it would be like this. Wrapped in Vincent's arms, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived, secure in the knowledge that she had been loved completely and had loved completely in return. That would be enough, more than enough. It would be everything. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, Vincent murmured, already half asleep. My Delilah, my everything. Delilah closed her eyes and let sleep take her, safe and warm and loved. She had come to Montana Territory with nothing but hope, and she had found a treasure beyond price. Not gold or cattle or land, though they had those things, but something infinitely more valuable. She had found home. She had found love. She had found her place in the world and her person in it. She had found everything she ever needed in the arms of a cowboy who had looked at her poverty and seen only her worth. The mail-order bride who arrived with nothing had brought everything the cowboy needed. And in return, he had given her everything she needed. Their love story was written in the very land they tended, in the children they raised, in the life they built together from raw hope and stubborn determination. It was a story that would continue long after they were gone, carried forward by their children and their children's children. A story of two people who took a chance on each other and created something that would last forever. As Delilah drifted into dreams, she smiled. She had gambled everything on a letter from a stranger, and she had won. Not just survival or security, but joy. Not just a husband, but a soulmate. Not just a house, but a home filled with love. She had won everything. And so had Vincent. Together, they had won the greatest prize of all. They had won each other, and they had won a love that would endure as long as the Montana sky stretched wide and eternal above their ranch. In the morning, they would wake and begin another day of work and love and family. They would face whatever challenges the day brought with the same partnership that had carried them through 18 years. They would choose each other again, as they always had, as they always would. But for now they slept, wrapped in each other's arms, two people who had found in each other everything they ever needed. The mail-order bride and the cowboy together forever, their love story written in the very fabric of the life they had built, and it was everything. Absolutely everything. More than either of them had dreamed possible that day in spring of 1882, when a young woman stepped off a stage-coach with nothing and met a young man who saw in her everything he had been missing. They had saved each other. They had chosen each other. They had loved each other. And in doing so, they had created something beautiful and permanent and true. A love that would echo through the generations, a testament to the power of faith, courage, and the willingness to risk everything for the possibility of something real. Their story was complete, but their love would go on forever, as endless as the Montana sky, as deep as the roots they had put down in the land they loved. A perfect ending to a perfect love story, built on the simple truth that sometimes the best things in life come when you are brave enough to believe in possibility and strong enough to fight for it. Delilah and Vincent had believed. They had fought, and they had won. Together, they had won everything.